Dr. Carlson speaks about his view on the paranormal, but another world, different beings, and how he changed his mind on aliens. Will he be talking about the Jinn? Well, let's find out. Cue the intro. Assalamu alaikum wa barakatuh. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of the most merciful and the most kind. Welcome back. Remember to like, subscribe, comment, and share to reach 1,000 subscribers. Look a brother up. And let's go with the video, shall we?
The deeper level is so if they're spiritual beings, which I believe they are, like it's a binary. They're either, you're on team good or team bad. You can assign any name to it you want, but like, what are these things? Are they good or bad? And I think some of them are bad. And if the U.S. government knows that, or elements, the people within the U.S. government know that, then they're serving a bad force. And
well, when you say spiritual, like what makes you draw that conclusion that they're spiritual?
What's the obvious? I mean, spiritual may be the wrong.
Well, and then we could talk about them living in a different dimension. It could be third dimension, fourth dimension, whatever you could call it. You can give it whatever name you want on it. The Quran speaks of the Jinn. They were created before humans on there. And they all serve the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Nothing happens without his will. Nothing happens without his consent on there. But there is a Jinn. They're called jinns in the Quran on it. You call them what you want. Call say demons. Call say malevolent forces on there. But there is another side. There is beings that do have some type of, I would say control, but they could have some form of influence on it. And the Quran speaks clearly about it.
Wrong word. Supernatural. They're beyond nature as we understand it. I mean, obviously they are. I mean, just chart their physical behavior. It doesn't, it goes outside of what we understand about physics. No visible means of propulsion, coming at indescribable speed, hitting the ocean, continuing at speeds that are impossible undersea. I mean, in other words, if I take a 9mm round or 7.62 by 39 and shoot you at 50 yards underwater in a swimming pool, and it's even more intense in salt water because it's denser, you could catch the bullet if it even makes it to you, right? So if you have a craft, any object underwater that's traveling at 500 knots as measured by sonar, right there, you're challenging our understanding of physics. Like, what is that? How can that be? So, yeah.
They've tracked that? They've tracked things going 500 knots under the sea?
Yeah, really. Yeah, much faster than any object can actually go undersea. Oh, for sure. Oh, yeah. There's a lot of stuff going on underwater, and a lot. And there's video of these things coming out of the sky into the water and also emerging from the water.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's funny because even the Quran speaks about the water, and even some allude to the water being their domain as well. I've actually put a video. I'm going to put a video about this as well on there. But yeah, this is actually documented on there in the Quran. It talks about this as well on there. And whatever we see, we may not be able to know what we actually see on it. But I think there's knowledge of this. There's always been knowledge of this. And it's just, again, hiding the truth and how the Quran knows this truth. The Quran has already had this truth on there. I think people are starting waking up to this as well on there.
So it's all so blurry, though.
I don't think it's that
transmedium video.
Yeah, I don't think some of it's that blurry. I think some of it's crystal clear.
We just don't have access to it. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Just we haven't seen it?
Correct.
So they have some stuff.
For sure. So, but there's just a lot going on underwater, and it's measured. And so whatever. I mean, these are all, again, this is like the most obvious observable level of it. But then you just ask yourself, like, what is this actually? And, if there's been extensive knowledge of this for decades, like maybe 80 years at least, if not going back to the 30s, 90 years, to what end? So there are two possible explanations, obvious explanations. The first is the one you often hear, which is this is so heavy that if the public were to know about it, it would be just disruptive. It'd be too
Right.
scary. Like, you don't want to scare people for no good reason. There's nothing we can do about it. And you also don't want to suggest that, the U.S. military isn't capable of protecting the country, the homeland. And it does suggest that. If you can't control these objects in your airspace, and that's known, if they can't, that's known, okay? Then that suggests a limit to the power of the U.S. military, and you don't want to tell people that because then they won't believe that they're safe. You get it. But then there's a deeper level, which is like, okay, what's your relationship with these things? What is the U.S. government's relationship with these things? And there's evidence that there is a relationship and that it's a longstanding. And that raises a lot of questions about intent. And so what is that? And
I think so. I think there is a relationship on it. Everything, even in Hollywood, everything that is all this evil, all this corruption, it's got to come from somewhere, right? Because now it has reached a certain level where even people are going, this is nuts. This is something going on. This is beyond the scope of what we thought, we can go to. And we see this because of the influence of the Jinn, influence that they are given as well on there, and all these evil, corrupt people. And I think they're influenced by the Jinn, and they're following for their own desires. And then we see this in our day-to-day life. I think Tucker Carlson, his mind is being open to something else, and I hope, inshallah, that he'll talk to somebody who's a Muslim, so maybe give him another perspective to see that maybe this is more than just 90 years. This is actually knowledge that's been going on for a long time. Alhamdulillah.
just personally decided, and people have been hurt by these things. That's a fact. That's a fact. It's a knowable fact. It's a provable fact. And killed. And I'm not saying millions of people have been killed by whatever these things are, but people have been killed, and it's known because it's working its way through the courts out of the VA. So, I don't know, an object that is by definition supernatural, it's above the laws of nature as we understand them, and that has resulted in the deaths of people. But we don't spend enough time thinking about what that adds up to. Not good, actually, not good.
How many people do you think have died from these things?
I don't know, but I mean,
And is it radiation sickness? Is it what's the cause
the
of
person
death?
that I talked to, I interviewed someone who was a Stanford medical school professor who's out there and worth talking to, by the way. And
You're talking about Gary Nolan?
that's exactly who I'm talking about. He was effectively an expert witness in these cases, so he's an expert in brain injury. Do you know him?
Yeah.
Yeah. Entirely credible person. Checks all the boxes that I care about. He's got patents, so he's like a lot of Stanford University professors. He's independently rich. I mean, he flew to. I live in a remote place, and he flew to my place at his own expense because he wanted to tell his story. So he's got no profit motive here. He's the most highly credentialed person at the university, practically, Stanford Medical School. We consider that a big deal. And he's worked on this for over 10 years. Assessing the injuries to U.S. servicemen from being in close proximity to these objects or having contact with these objects. And his conclusion, as you know, because you've talked to him, is that there's some kind of energy coming off here that scrambles people's brains or kills them.
Yeah, we've seen that. Yes, when you get in contact with a jinn, we're not. Yeah, it especially the brain. And the Quran talks so much about the brain, keeping your brain intact. That's why drinking and drugs, things that affect your brain, is so important on there. Don't pray when you're drunk. Don't pray. It's so about your brain. Use your brain. Use your logic on. And I think a lot of people don't think about these things, especially when it comes to Christians, because they're not told to think about this thing. I think they have some idea when I talk about demons, spirits. Even Bible talks about this. It's not just we have principalities and rulers of darkness. Yes, there are some things in the dark that we can't see, but there's so much and so much knowledge when it comes to Quran, Hadith, the Sunnah of the Prophet, when it comes to the Jinn, all the way to their creation, to their purpose, and what they do in every day. then it actually fits in not just what we see, but also what Carlson is talking about.
And it's not exactly radiation, at least in his telling to me. So anyway, but the point is, people have died.
Yeah.
And so, it does raise a lot of questions about, like, what the hell, right? What the hell? American citizens have died and you're hiding it? Why are you hiding that? Why would you hide that?
Perhaps because they don't have any explanations. Because it's so beyond our comprehension that they're still trying to piece it together. Like, I would wonder how much interaction they really do have with these things. Like, if I was from another planet or if I was some interdimensional being, I don't know how much I'd give a shit about the president. I don't know how much I'd give a shit about the government. I would probably look at this infantile race, this species, this bizarre territorial apes with thermonuclear weapons, this very weird species. I'd probably look at them as very chaotic, and I wouldn't really have much concern for who's running it.
Yeah, you will look down on them, and you will see, wow, I am better than you. You're literally describing the story of what Shaitan is in the Quran. Yeah, you're looking down on them, so I am better than they are on it. But they're not from another planet. They're in our realm. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, put them there on it. And they're supposed to serve Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as well on there. And his will be done because he is the best of planners as well. And they're there to test us. And I believe they have a lot of influence, especially these people who are just evil, who are all about their desires. And we know for a fact, especially people running this country, are all about their desires, all about what they want. And they will do whatever it takes to get what they want on there. And the Jinn and them, they work together. Hollywood is infested with this type of evil and the Jinns as well on there. We're seeing more and more. Like the last thing to talk about, Nickelodeon. He keeps coming back now, and it's becoming more and more and more apparent as we're closer and closer to the end of times.
Especially if they have the ability to travel at insane speeds and go undetected. And
well, it depends. Like that. Okay, so the template that you're using to understand this is like science fiction, right? These are an advanced race of beings from somewhere else. But the template that every other society before us has used is a spiritual one. Mm-hmm. There is a whole world that we can't see that acts on people, a supernatural world that's acting on us all the time for good and bad. Every society has thought this before ours. In fact, every society in all recorded history has thought that until, I'll be specific, August 1945, when we dropped the atom bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And all of a sudden, the West is just officially secular. We're God. There is no God but us. And that's the world that we have grown up in, but that's an anomaly. Like no one else has ever thought that. There's never been a society that thought that. Every other society has assumed, and they've had all kinds of different explanations, and the details differ, but the core idea does not differ, and never has differed from caves until now, that we're being acted on by spiritual forces at all times. And so to someone born before or living before 1945, I think it would have been much more obvious that this is the thing that every society has written about. And in fact, that battle, that unseen battle around us, that spiritual battle, has like been the basis of every society, of every religion, not just Christianity. So like it just, once you discard your very, very recent assumptions, relatively speaking, about how the world works, you're like, well, that kind of seems like the obvious explanation, right?
And it is. And alhamdulillah for the Quran and our prophet and all the prophets, peace and blessings be upon him. And then we see what is the biggest driving force that is changing the narrative? Hollywood. Because now everybody takes their cue from Hollywood. Everybody does. In their views, what they see things, Hollywood. That everything. Even their own story of Jesus It's all made up stuff from Hollywood. They have no idea on it, but they see the show. Oh, the show's great. The last one about Jesus, but 99.999% of all that is just made up stuff because they don't have anything about it those times, and they make it all. They just it's all made up, and people eat it up. People eat it up as if there's truth on there. And yes, before recorded time, all the way to beforehand, yes, there is another world, but they're anchored to our world as well, because Allah Subhanahu wa Taala deemed it so. And I hope he goes down more. He goes and reads more on this. Hopefully, he will have some a scholar in Islam that can actually give another perspective, and then he could bring some more light on the truth that Islam is known for over 1,000 years. This is not something new, and alhamdulillah for Islam. I hope you guys like the video. Let me know what you guys think. Subscribe, like, comment, and share. And until next time, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace.